Hi, everybody. It's Bob Huesler from The Fan. Coming up next, it's Locked Up Sports.
Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm Bob Walters. This is Locked Up Sports late night. It is after midnight. It is Friday morning, early Friday morning, and that doesn't help out at all with the state of the New York Mets as they lose another game. They've lost 16 of 21. They lost 9-3 today. Again, MANEA, another poor performance. Just listen, they can't get anything going with this starting pitching, and they're pretty much, they get what they deserve. Right? Welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to talk about today's game. We're going to talk about the upcoming series with the Braves. We're going to talk about the Phillies coming up after that. And the Phillies are just kind of running away with this thing right now, right? The Mets are now 7 games back. You're really looking at the wild card. I put the wild card up here because that's really what they're shooting for now. You know, they're not really going for the division. It's 7 games back. It's kind of pointless. You know, you're not going to make up 7 games. I mean, it's obviously, of course, it's possible, but is it really likely with the way this team is playing? I could see them now missing the playoffs, and totally, right? They could miss the playoffs totally and lose out to Cincinnati, and if they do that, then there's going to be questions to answer. And as bad as it looks now, listen, the Mets they're still in the driver's seat because you have Cincinnati, who is really the only team that the Mets are competing with for that third wild card. Everybody else is kind of back. St. Louis, I think, is 5.5 back of the Mets. Yeah, they're right there. I'm sorry. St. Louis is 4 games back of the Mets, and then Arizona and Cincinnati plays Arizona, so Arizona has a shot coming up this weekend. But it's the Mets and Cincinnati, and they're not catching the Phillies. I'm sorry, not playing like this. And the Phillies are playing good baseball. You know, we kind of thought the Mets won 3 in a row, right? They look good. They played well against Seattle. They looked good in the first game against Washington. But even at that point, they had lost a ton of games, and now they're 16 out of 21 they've lost. And again today, it's the same story as it's been with MANEA, right? He hasn't been able to really do anything. I'm trying to bring this up. There we go. You know, the Mets it was the same story. The Mets get a lead. It was 3-0. You had a leadoff home run by Lindor. You had Marte with a home run. And then you had Senga get his first major league RBI. And it's 3-0. They're looking good. MANEA set down the order, and he struck out the side in the second inning. And you're feeling good about it. And then it's the same old story. One bad inning where they just get crushed. And MANEA, again, he did not pitch well. He went into the 5th inning. You can't blame Mendoza. A lot of people say Mendoza shouldn't have taken him out. He doesn't want these pitchers to go 6 innings. He won't leave them in. He won't let them work out of their own mess. But do you really think MANEA was getting out of that this afternoon? He wasn't. He wasn't going to get out of this. And then you have Rogers come in, who's no good. You know, that's a disappointment. That Stearns has got to take some heat here because these relief pitchers that he got have not been good. And then Stanek again. I mean, Stanek in the 8th inning, the Mets didn't have much. I mean, they were only 2 runs down. And he gave up, the 3-run home run, and that just was the icing on the cake. And it's not good. Every aspect of this team is just so inconsistent. So inconsistent. But they're consistently inconsistent because we've seen this game a million times. They either get a 3-run or a 5-run lead in the early innings. Then they fall back in one bad inning. The pitcher blows up or the reliever blows up. They gave up that 9-run inning to Atlanta. They have a 5-run inning here. It's just the same story. And then they can't hit with runners in scoring position. The Mets just can't. They were 1 for 6 today with runners in scoring position. 1 for 6. And that's the same story it's been since, basically the whole season. And this team has too much talent to be in the position they're in, basically out of the division. They're better than the Phillies. This Mets team is better on paper than last year's Mets team. Now I know it doesn't have the magic that last year's team had with the all the gimmicks and everything, but they're a better team. When you throw Juan Soto onto a team like this, And you add these bullpen arms that are supposed to be on paper are good arms. Rogers is, he's as as good as and consistent as it gets his whole career. He leads the league in appearances every year for like the last 4 or 5 years. And he's solid. He's not great, but he's solid. He delivers. He's got the weird delivery. And then he just comes to the Mets and it's flat on his face. And the same thing with Helsley. Helsley was one of the top closers in the National League for multiple years. Comes to the Mets, right on his face. And then Stanek and the rest of them they're just no good. They're really not. And the Mets now, after we were like, okay, you go on to this road trip, you do okay. You got teams that are no good. You got the Braves, you got the Nationals. You should be able to win 5 out of 6, and they can't win anything. And now they're going to be going to Atlanta, which is a house of horrors, except for last year at the end of the season. We all know it. We all know how Atlanta plays against the Mets. And I expect them to lose 2 out of 3. Tomorrow you got McClain going again, which of course, which should be interesting. Let me just get this off. There we go. Hold on one second. You got McClain going. Last time he was 5 and a third, 2 hits, no runs. He was brilliant. He got us all kind of pumped up again. And then the Mets, then you get MANAEA and you get Senga. And I was really disappointed in Senga because Senga's supposed to be the best pitcher on this staff. Obviously, it's Peterson, but Peterson's not an ace either. But obviously, it's Peterson. But Senga is he has more talent. He has the most talent probably on the staff. And he is just, since this injury, it's been absolutely nothing from Senga. Nothing. 3 innings here, 3 innings there, 4 and a third, 5 runs. And he did, the ghost fork is not really working. He's getting banged around, and the Mets can't come back. They come back, they fall short. They have all the signs of a bad baseball team. And I think that the manager and the GM both have to take a hit here because the trade deadline that we thought was so good has turned out to be a disaster. It's been a complete disaster. Nothing has gone right since the trade deadline. They have played terrible since the All-Star break. They were at a 5-game lead at one point over the Phillies. The Phillies have blown past them like they're standing still, and the Mets can't get anything going. And now they're looking at only a game up in the loss column against of the Reds. And I could see the Reds passing them. And I'm telling you, if this thing goes south now in the next month, people are there's gonna be questions to be answered. And I don't think the manager is gonna get fired. I don't think Mendy's gonna get fired, but I think it's on the table because this is a collapse. 9-3 to the Nationals is unacceptable. Losing yesterday to the Nationals with Senga on the mound, unacceptable. And it's just ridiculous that this team, time after time after time again, is doing the same thing. They can't get out of the 4th inning. They can't. They still, they had a pitcher this week pitch into the 7th or the 8th inning, but it was Peterson. It's always Peterson. It's only Peterson who can do it, and it's just not been good. So the Mets now are really looking at the wild card. The Phillies 7 games up. The Phillies aren't going to blow that lead. The Reds had off tonight. The Reds are in Arizona tomorrow for 3. It's Arizona's last gasp as they are, what are they? Arizona, I can't read this. Arizona's 5.5 back. So this is their last gasp. And we'll see if the Reds can take 2 out of 3 and the Mets lose 2 out of 3. Well, then there you go. The Mets will go back home to Citi Field to play the Phillies out of the playoffs, which is really hard to imagine with the start this team had and then the trade deadline that they had, and now Viento's hitting, and he's really picked it up. It's just, it's one thing after another with this team. It really is. Now, if you guys would like to call the show, there's the QR code. Just scan that QR code, and then come on, and it's very easy. You just follow the two questions or whatever it is. You click join, and I'll bring you right on, and we can vent about the Mets together, because I think Mendoza's gonna have to take some blame here, and I think Stearns is gonna have to take some blame too. You can't let Stearns off the hook free. Now Stearns ain't going anywhere. I'm not saying he is. He's certainly not, but he has made some questionable decisions. If Sproat is this good, and it looks like, I'm sorry. If McLean is this good, and it looks like Sproat is just as good. I mean, Sproat in the minor leagues, he's killing it. Why is he not up here? We have been begging for help with this team on the pitching on the pitching in the starting rotation, and we bring up Sproat. And Sproat in his last 9 starts, he has 48 innings pitched, a 2 ERA, 57 strikeouts. His WHIP is under 1 at 0.85. Why is this guy not in this rotation? Why did we have to watch Montas a couple more times? Why did I have to watch MANAEA again? Who is just, these pitchers have run out of gas. These pitchers have completely run out of gas. MANEA, now that's $25 million to MANEA. It's looking like that, last year was a career year. He's not going to be able to repeat that. Now he has flashes of it here and there. And the Mets, it hasn't been there. Just in every aspect of this team, it hasn't been there. What was there last year? They had some magic. I'm telling you, it's a better team. This is a better team than that team was. At least on paper it is. But you don't play the games on paper. And that's really what the problem has been. It's been a disaster. And, they have a month to correct it. They do have time. They should be able to get in the playoffs. But when you get in the playoffs with the wild card, they'll be playing on the road. It's basically a flip of a coin. A 3-game series. I mean, look, the Mets are better than the Nationals, right? They just lost that series. The Mets are better than a lot of these teams that they've lost series to. So let me just bring up the comments here. It hasn't been good. So the Mets lose today 9-3. I don't like, Alonso has been iffy in the field. He made that a play again today where he threw it to second, which was, I don't know what you're doing. You're up 2 runs, take the out, especially with these pitchers. You're dying to get outs. And with Rogers and with, Stanek, I'm done with Stanek as far as that. Stanek, I liked Stanek for a little while. I said he could be the 8th inning guy. And then when they got Helsley, I said he could be the 7th inning guy. And he was pitching all right there for a week or two. He's no good either. The entire pitching staff is just basically a disaster. And Stern, this is the pitching staff that Stern's built. He caught lightning in a bottle last year. We all said to him, but before the season started, are you sure about this? Because last year was, you might have got lucky last year. You sure you're going to go to war with this pitching staff? And he said, yep, this is my guys. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be built up the bullpen. He wanted to leave Sproat and McLean in the minors for as long as he did. And it's just completely backfired. Not only did they all get hurt to start the year, but, they started the year in spring training. Half of them were hurt. But now when they've all come together, it's just, it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out at all. And Nimmo now getting hurt today and Alvarez going down. It's just kind of all falling apart here. And it's setting up for what could be, what I think is probably going to be just a ho-hum, maybe a couple games under 500 September. And the Mets are going to, they could very well miss the playoffs. Now, they should make the playoffs. Even with the way that they're playing, they're better than the Reds. The Reds are not a great team. The Mets are much better than the Reds. And if the Mets do happen to get their way in, backdoor their way into the playoffs, you never know. With this team, if they got hot, if they happen to all come together, if all the stars aligned, and Soto starts hitting, and Soto's hitting, and Alonso's hitting, and Lindor, who is on a red hot, he had 3 hits again today, who is red hot. And if he starts hitting, and you get good pitching from Sproat, and McLean, and it turns out they're the real deal, then of course the Mets can make a run. It's not over. I mean, you got to believe, right? But it just doesn't look like it. And every time they get the engine revved up a little bit, it's just 2 steps forward and 4 steps backwards. And that's what we saw this week. And it was just a complete, this was an easy road trip. It's supposed to be an easy road trip. And it just wasn't. It didn't work out that way. If you guys, like I said, if you want to join the show and rant and rave about the Mets, well, there's nothing to rave about. Just scan that QR code and you'll hop right on. I don't know what else there is to say about this team. They don't get hits at all with runners in scoring position, and they haven't all year, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. They can't hit in the clutch. Last year they were so clutch. This year, this team can't get a hit in the clutch to save their life. And then you got the base running blunders. You had Lindor get picked off today. I wasn't too impressed with that the base stealing record thing that they had, the 40 something in a row, because it's much easier to steal bases now. First of all, much easier because you just read the pitcher and you wait till you get the shot clock, the pitch clock gets low, and then you could take off. You could kind of time it. If he's already thrown over there a couple times, he has to take it to the plate if he's not going to pick you off. So you could time that. So, it's not real. I wasn't that impressed with it. I was a little, it's a little cheesy that they lost it. They lost the streak on a pickoff where he went back to first base. But, what are you going to do about that? So the Mets lose today. They now go to Atlanta for 3 and then back home. And what was supposed to be a big time series with high energy, big crowds at Citi Field it's not going to be that. I wouldn't be surprised now to see more empty seats during those 3 games. Last time when the Mets came back after a terrible road trip, which was just 2 weeks ago, there were empty seats for the first time in the upper deck in Citi Field all year, and I'm there almost every night. There was a ton of empty seats, and this time I think you're gonna see some empty seats, even though the Mets are right there. They're right there for the wild card. But they haven't been able, listen, you can't go lose 5 of 6, which is, very realistic now. And I said that, unless the Mets go 1-5, it's going to be a big series against the Phillies. And what happened? Now they're right on pace to go 1-5 after teasing us and playing well against Seattle and winning the Little League Classic, and Lindor starting hitting and Alvarez started hitting, and then Alvarez got hurt, and it just kind of, went downhill from there. So, listen, it is what it is. It's almost football season, right? But, do you still believe, do you still think that this team can get into the playoffs? I would imagine now, today at least, that most people are just saying no, absolutely not. We don't stand a chance. But the reality is if they get in there, they have a decent lineup. They have multiple Hall of Famers on this team in Lindor and in Soto. And they have someone who's probably going to the Hall of Fame too in Alonso, or he's at least headed that way. So they are capable. But I think that the pitching, even if those guys all hit, the pitching is going to be the downfall. And Mendoza is not good with the pitching staff. He's not good on when to take guys out, on when to put guys in. Should he leave him in one more batter? He's not a good in-game manager. He's not at all. And I think it's really coming out this year with the managing the bullpen and then managing the starting staff with all the injuries. Because I still blame him, and I blame Stearns, of course, because Stearns is the architect of this. We heard, how much did we hear about the pitching lab and we got it, and nobody knows about these guys. We got them. And no, he was wrong. We were all right. It really looks like they caught lightning in a bottle last year. And this year, it's not a clutch team. They don't get big hits. They can't hit with runners in scoring position. They don't come back and win games real late. They come back a lot, but they fall short. They still have yet to win a game when trailing going into the 9th inning. I'm almost positive they're the only team in Major League Baseball that has not won a game after trailing after 8 innings. And how is that even possible? You know how it is? Because they don't get the hits with runners in scoring position. They don't hit in the clutch. They strike out a lot. And Soto's going to put up good numbers, big numbers this year. But he can't get a big hit. At no point did Soto put this team on his back and take them for 3 or 4 weeks. And I still see journalists out there and read things in the paper saying, oh, he's coming. The 6-week Soto carrying this team into the play is coming. It's not coming. It hasn't come yet. It's not coming. And he's had a good year. Look at his numbers. He's had a big time year. But none of it was in the clutch. And he never took this team and was the leader of this team. Lindor is clearly the leader. Lindor is clearly, I think, maybe even the best player on this team. But even he had prolonged slumps, multiple prolonged slumps. And bad slumps, where he usually does it in the beginning of the season. He got off to the hot start, and then, he had multiple, 2 and 3 week slumps. And the problem is this team could never put it together, all aspects of the team. They were never hitting, pitching well, no injuries. They never put it all together. The thing never got started. They jumped out to a great start. They were playing great at home up until about a month ago. But the pitching was hurt in the early season. The whole staff went down. Then the bats went quiet. When Soto was hitting, nobody else was hitting. And then when everybody else was hitting, Soto wasn't hitting. Alonso went into a couple slumps. They made blunders on the base paths. The third base coaches cost them at least 2 or 3 games. And then the bullpen, when they shored up the bullpen at the trade deadline, it turns out they just poked more holes in it. And it just has all fallen apart. And it's a shame. Now, we weren't expecting this year to be a great year, but we weren't expecting it last year. And that's what made it so much fun, is that it came out of left field. And yeah, there was the gimmicks with the grimace and the Haktua and everything. It just kind of was the perfect storm. And that's why I said last year, you got to cherish years like that, because you don't get them a lot, especially as Mets fans. We don't get them we get them once a decade or twice a decade. But now, and it's disappointing that they're not going to win the division too, because they had this division. They lost this division as much as the Phillies are going to win it. And the Mets never win the division. Never. Even when they make the playoffs, more times than not, it's as a wild card. And it could very easily happen again to this year. But you play 2 out of 3 wild card series, rolling the dice. And, I'll be there. I'll be watching. I'll be cheering. I'll be believing if they do get in. But, this team is just destined to fail, I think. And I think they got to take a serious look, and they got to have to rebuild this pitching staff. Look, they're stuck with MANAEA for a couple years. You're going to have a lot of young infusion coming into this team. You're going to have the Jonathan. You're going to have, you're going to have a lot of infusion. You're going to have Sproat and McLean in the starting rotation next year. I think you're going to have them both in it this week, to be honest with you, because they're going to have to start really taking some chances. And what do you have to lose? Because you're going to pitch Senga. He's not going to do any good. He's going to burn out your bullpen. The guys right now in the rotation are just burning out this bullpen. And that's why you see things like, and to be honest with you, I don't know why they haven't really used Clay Holmes. Put Clay Holmes in the bullpen. He can be good in the bullpen. I know he was okay at the Little League thing. He pitched okay that night. But put him in the bullpen because he's good for 3 innings. And when you get a game like where Senga or MANEA, one of these 3 or 4 innings, and then they get into trouble, you can pull them out. You put in Holmes as a stopgap, get you into the 7th inning. But even then, Helsley's been garbage. Rogers has been, unimpressive at best. Stanek is just, throwing up meatballs, giving up 3-run homers every time out. I mean, you had a 3-0 lead today, 5th inning. And the Nationals, the last place Nationals, scored 9 unanswered runs in a game that you needed to win. Same thing happened last night. How many times is this team going to just get a lead and then just stop? They just stop. They stop hitting. They make mistakes on the base path. You have Alonso throwing to the wrong base. And then you top it off with a Stanek, 4-run 8th inning to end the game. And that's where you get a 9-3 loss and losing 2 out of 3 to the last place Nationals. And that is not a playoff team. The Mets don't look like a playoff team because of the fact that that they'll turn into the NHL and the NBA. That they might make it in. And yeah, I was just saying they could get hot, but they're not going to get hot like that. This team, and I know that they look good against the Dodgers early in the year. But do you think this team's going to go in and win and beat the Dodgers? But you're going to have people who are going to believe, and that's what the Mets fans do. The Mets have a lot of work to do. Last year was kind of everything came together exactly the way it needed to. It was a magical year. We made a magical run. You can't do that every year. You got to get better on the talent. And I know that they've been stacking the minors, and we're going to start to see it. But some of those guys are not going to pan out. I mean, look at Scott. He went through Tommy John. Now he's going to have to reprove himself. What happens if Sproat or McLean gets hurt? What do you do? Now, I know they're stacked in the minors. But I think that this year was a year that you could have went for it. I'm not saying mortgage the whole future, get rid of all the prospects. But they could have went for it this year. They were right at the cusp at the trade deadline, and he decided to shore up the bullpen. And he added a center fielder who stinks, who hasn't done anything for this team. And he didn't touch the starting pitchers. The Mets desperately needed a starting pitcher. The bullpen was falling apart already, and he made the wrong decisions with the bullpen because none of those guys are good. None of them are under contract for next year, thankfully. And they made the wrong decisions. They needed another bat. You know, you had a good defensive center fielder, and I get it. Tyrone Taylor doesn't hit. He's now hitting 199 after today. But when you have guys, and you have this payroll that the Mets have, and you have guys like Soto and Lindor, they're not getting any. Lindor's not getting any younger. Alonso's probably going to be gone. And what do we have for this season? After the greatness of last year, we're going to sit there and we're going to remember and reminisce about 253 home runs. That was our big highlight of the season. And that is embarrassing. We celebrated the past with David Wright and 253 home runs. And we all went crazy. Not 453, 253. And okay, it's a great, he's the home run king of the Mets. That's like saying, that's not saying much. 253 home runs. You're going to have to look at the manager. Is Mendoza the guy that can get this team to the promised land? Or is it kind of like a Thibodeau situation with the Knicks? Because I'm telling you, the Mets go in and lose 2 out of 3 to Atlanta, and they get swept by the Phillies, or they lose 2 out of 3 to the Phillies. All of a sudden, you're going to look up, and Cincinnati's going to be 2 games ahead of the Mets, and they're going to be running past them just like the Phillies did. A complete collapse here over the last 3 months of this season. And Citi Field and the fans have been electric this season. Citi Field has been the place to be on the weekend. On Friday and Saturday nights, that place is jumping, but it's also jumping on a Tuesday and Wednesday night. We were ready. Last year was the primer. This was going to be the year, and we started out so well. And then to just fall on our face, it turns out they weren't a good baseball team. Because it takes more than what's on paper. And we saw that last year. We've done this before. This is old hat for us Mets fans. This is a good year, right? At least we're still playing meaningful games. And they probably will be until, the last, week or 2 of the season. And even if they make it, they'll play some playoff games. I haven't seen the ticket prices for the playoffs, but I've heard they're outrageous because they started sending them out to the season ticket holders now. A huge price increase for next year. I'm thinking it's probably going to be like when they played the Padres a couple years ago with just full sections of empty seats during that 3-game series. And that was embarrassing. I was there for all 3 games. And it was embarrassing. They got blown out game 1. Scherzer was a disaster. Boos all over the place. Empty seats all over the place. And you can start selling. Someone was saying the other day, I saw online that next year their season tickets. I'm sorry. That the playoff tickets, because you have to buy, the whole thing, the whole playoffs. You put the money down. And then what they say when they don't make it to the later rounds, they say, we're just going to keep the money and we'll put it towards your tickets next year. Someone said that the tickets for the playoffs were the same price as their whole season just a couple years ago. You want to keep increasing these tickets and these ticket prices, Uncle Steve. You better start winning games. Because Stearns, the boy wonder, It's all analytics. And yeah, he did great. And he's not going anywhere. He's gonna be around here for a while. You know, we're not gonna put up with seasons like this, with him making mistakes like this at the trade deadline. I mean, how many times do we have to sit and watch him do this? The pitching staff was not good enough. Clearly, we all knew. Everybody knew it. Everybody but Stearns, right? And he's smarter than everybody else. Don't tell him what to do. Did you watch us last year? That's what he's saying. I know what I'm doing. Well, you know what? You didn't. Because the pitching and the starting pitching and the bullpen is completely why this team is going to fail. Yeah, you could throw in the hit, not getting clutch hits. Eventually, Soto and Lindor will get clutch hits over these years. And as far as Alonso goes, if he's asking for 6-7 years, I don't want him to come back. And it has nothing to do with whether I like Alonso or anything like that. The back end of that contract is going to be terrible. And you have a good first baseman in the minors. You don't want to sit there and you don't want to remember Alonso as just a deteriorating player, making a ton of money, sitting at first base, wasting a spot. I wanted them to get rid of. I would have loved to have Guerrero. Look how good the Blue Jays are. They're going to win the AL East, and Guerrero's leading the way. And Alvarez being hurt, and Vientos, listen, as good as Vientos is hitting now, we had 4 or 5 months of Vientos doing nothing and bitching and moaning that he wasn't playing. Yeah, he's hitting now. He's hit a hot streak. It's nothing like last year. He was going to be he was a superstar. He was one of the main reasons why this team came within 2 wins of a pennant. This year, it's been more bad Vientos than anything else. It really has. So the Mets lose again today. Like I said, you want to join the show? You want to vent on the Mets? You got something to say? Scan the QR code in the bottom left of the corner, and we will talk Mets. And I'll give you the floor. You can say whatever you like to say. How bad? Who do you blame for this team? Is Mendoza's seat getting hot? Is Stearns overrated? Did Soto have a good year? Because numbers-wise say Soto did have a good year up to this point. Now, if he just goes wild, crazy and somehow the Mets could, have some kind of crazy comeback and win the division or something like that, then no, okay. But I mean, us Mets fans, after last year, got in the Yankee fans' faces and told them, we're better. Soto chose us over you because we're better. We're a better run organization. We have a richer owner. We are now the place to be in New York. And here we are. The Mets are 7 games out as we head right into September. They are trending downward. And the Yankees are winning games and have a huge series now with Boston coming up. It's the same old story, and it sucks. Because I was right there with you, telling my Yankee fan friends, oh, of course Soto chose us. Who else would you choose? Why would you not choose the Mets? They're a better team. They're a better run organization. They are going to win more. They have a richer owner, a better ballpark, right? We said it all. And here we are on August 22nd. And the Yankees are soaring towards the playoffs, and the Mets are diving towards the ground. With Soto, without Soto, that doesn't matter. Soto looks like, I'm not going to say he looks like he doesn't care. He's got his money. I'm not going to say he doesn't care, but it looks that way. He's laughing and smiling, and he's jogging down the first, and he's, Now, I get it when great players are like that, they make it look easy. And Soto is good. And Soto's a great player. This isn't going to be like this for 15 years. I promise. He's too good. He's not overrated. He had one of the great World Series ever as a 20-year-old, however old he is, as a 20-something-year-old. He had one of the great World Series in that World Series with the Nationals. So that he didn't just forget how to play. But the way he comes across is, all right, we're going to lose. It is what it is. And we're sitting here throwing things at the TV as he jogs out another 2-hopper to second base and gets thrown out by 30 feet. With that signing came expectations for everybody on this team. And the Mets have fallen short in every aspect of those expectations. You know, the season's not 2 months long. Mets were good for 2 months. And then it's just been subpar in every aspect for the remainder of the season. It was a fun summer, but it's fading fast. And I'm talking like it's over, but, you know, you forget about the division. Forget about it. And if I'm wrong, I'll come on here and I'll tell you I'm wrong. But then, you know, then the division is so far off the way they're playing right now, so far off. The Phillies are sweeping the Mariners. They're winning. They won 8 of 10 when the Mets won 6 of 4. We got excited when the Mets won 3 in a row. But in reality, if you expanded out that 3 in a row, they still lost 15 of 20. Now they've lost 16 of 21 or 16 of 22. And somebody's got to be blamed for this. And can you really blame MANEA, who was great last year and we loved him last year? But Sean MANEA is not, you know, Tommy Glavine. Senga, disappointing because Senga's better than this. Senga was better than this. He's been better than this whole time with the Mets. But see, he's never healthy. And now if he's going to come back after injuries like he has this year, it's not worth it. Clay Holmes pitched his ass off for us. And he was good. He just ran into the wall, which we all saw coming. And the fact that Stearns didn't see coming. I mean, if you look at the amount of innings that he's pitched compared to his highest amount of innings in his life, it's like triple. How could you not see this coming with Clay Holmes? Peterson has been good. He's a number 2, though. Peterson isn't an ace because when we needed him to come in and give you 7 innings and stop losing streaks on multiple occasions, he couldn't do it. We've gotten those performances from him at other points of the season, including last night. But when you needed him big time, just after the All-Star break, to come in and shut down the losing streak, which is what an ace needs to do, he couldn't do it and he came up short. Marte, I love Marte. Marte's getting old. He had a home run today, and he's been great. Alvarez has been mostly a disaster. Third base, the Mets have gotten nothing out of third base. You know who's had one of the better years is Jeff McNeil. Quietly, under the radar. And now that he's stationed at second base, he doesn't have to come to the ballpark going, am I going to play 3 innings in center, 2 innings in right, third base, second base? Now he's really starting to play better. And Alonso, who got off to a red-hot start, he was never going to hit that the whole season. I get it. But he had prolonged slumps. And so did Lindor. And Lindor's been, when Lindor's hot, he's red hot. He's a Hall of Famer. But he's had month-long slumps. You can't just slump for a month. And when you slump, everybody else slumps. I don't think there was a single point in this season where the Mets had everything going. Maybe, because even in the early in the season when they were winning, they were playing great start, the pitching was in shambles. They were doing it with smoke and mirrors. I don't know how they did it. At one point in the early season, Brazoban was reliever of the month. He's in the minors. And Diaz, I feel like we haven't seen Diaz in 3 weeks. Because the Mets don't get to points where they could put Diaz in. The whole point of the trade deadline was get the ball to Diaz. Get it from the starters, bridge the gap, get it to Diaz, who's had himself a phenomenal year. But we just can't. We can't get him the ball. I feel like we go weeks without seeing Diaz, which isn't good either. He can opt out at the end of the year. It's going to be a different looking team. It's going to be a better team because you're going to have these kids. And McLean might be the real deal. And I think Sproat's the real deal. And I think Jonathan is the real deal. Jonathan, you have to watch out. He's got that weird, he's kind of like a Lincecum type of thing. He's a thin, tall, weird arm, a lot of pressure on the arm, a lot of weird, movements in the way he throws. So you got to watch out for that because that has Tommy John written all over it. And we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But listen, it's all still in front of the Mets as far as the playoffs go. You got to start winning games, though. They're going to have to go in and win 2 out of 3 because I think the Reds are playing well. The Mets are better than the Reds, though. The Reds are like the Mets last year, which is dangerous because they're starting to believe. 1 game back in the loss column, effectively tied with the Mets. St. Louis is not coming back. St. Louis is not going to make up 4 games, and Arizona's not. So it's really just a 2-team race for that third playoff spot. And then San Diego looks like it's going to get in. The Cubs out, and the Cubs are the Brewers. Obviously, I mean, the Brewers have just flown by the Cubs like they're standing still. So not a lot of tight races in the National League. The Mets and Cincinnati is really the tightest one going. Yeah, also have San Diego, obviously, and the Dodgers. But another disappointing loss, and it's headed towards a disappointing season and a disappointing end. And the Giants aren't going to be any good. And the Jets are still the Jets. So I would have liked to get us into October here. And I don't want to be sitting there in October watching the Yankees. Because they're going to rub it in our faces and we're going to have nothing to say. Because all winter, we told them we were better. We were more equipped for the future. We took their guy. He wanted to come to us. We have a better run franchise. Not so far. Not so far. 9-3 Mets lose today. Another stinker from MANAEA. A couple home runs from the Mets. Bullpen stinks. It's the same story. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for joining us late night here on Locked Up Sports. I'm Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. See ya.